Hi, it's Andy here from The Kendo Show. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Very quick and informal video about the new memo that the All Japan Kendo Federation have put out in regards to safety of the Shinai and the Kendo armor. As I mentioned in the last video, there is also kenshi247.net. Get over to that website. It's a fantastic website. It's got all sorts of information about Kendo and things relating to Kendo. Yesterday, the guys over there put out a quick breakdown of these proposed rules in English, okay? And it picks up on some of the key points. So get over to kenshi247.net and check that out first of all. But what I'd like to do is go over the Japanese sort of publication and pick up on some of the really important points that I think need some clarification, because whenever something like this happens, we often see a lot of confusion or misunderstandings happen, and in terms of how it relates to everybody's Kendo around the world. So the first thing I'd like to point out is this is a suggested, well, it's a kind of preliminary rule change by the All Japan Kendo Federation that they will only be implementing in certain upcoming tournaments for the time being. They are asking for comments and feedback on it from members of the All Japan Kendo Federation. You do actually need a All Japan Kendo Federation membership number to be able to give your feedback on them, unfortunately. But it may be something that comes into sort of wider use later on. Before we delve too deep into it, I'd like to quickly remind you to do all your Kendo shopping at kendoborgjapan.com. It's fantastic quality, shipped straight from Japan, and of course, you can be sure that all of the things on there are going to conform to the brand new rules. If you're based in Europe or in the UK, you can also shop at kendostar.co.uk. It's the same great gear, but we import it into the UK first and ship it out from the UK. That means that you don't have to pay any import duty and stuff like that, and you can also get some of the items quicker because we've got them in stock here in the UK. So that's kendoborgjapan.com and kendostar.co.uk. Both of those sites go towards funding and supporting this channel. So, looking at this memo that's come out, the first thing I would say is that it's split into two main parts. The first part is about Shinai, and the second part is about Bogu. Now, the Shinai part, I'm not going to go into too much detail in, because, to be honest, it's quite common sense stuff. What they want is, the first thing just literally says stuff we already know, that the Shinai has to be made of 4 pieces and can only contain the approved parts. Also, the bit they've put in bold is it can't have big gaps between the bamboo staves, and you can't have sort of tampered with the shape of it too much. It can't. And basically, the second one actually feeds into that. They're going to be more strict on how they measure the diameter of the tip of the Shinai. Okay, essentially. Cut a long story short, they don't want these Shinai that are massive at the handle, at the door, and really thin and tiny at the tip. We don't really see those too much, to be honest, these days. Certainly not on the international scene. I know in Japan there's a few out there popular with younger practitioners, particularly that are really focused on competition. We don't tend to use them abroad because they break after 2 or 3 uses because they're so thin at the tip. They might be massive down here, but yeah, they're not very durable. So I don't think that's something that's really going to affect many of us, even if it was put into worldwide use. But basically, you can't be doing any of this jamming tsuba in between the staves. That's a trick I've seen to make it wider at the door. You can't be doing anything like that anymore. Anything like that will result in the Shinai not being valid for competition use. So the second point is about the Kendo armor, and the first point is very simple. It's talking about on the men, if you have any sort of polycarbonate shields or sort of protectors, they have to be approved by the All Japan Kendo Federation. Fair enough stuff. I think it basically refers to those plastic shields you can get that go inside the mengane, or even those men that have it sort of fixed in place of the bars. That's what that's about, from what I can understand there. It's the second point that I think is quite important now. This talks about the the men button, okay? Men futon it calls it actually, but the men button, it talks about how it has to be long enough to protect the shoulders. And this is a really pertinent point because this is something, to be honest, I've seen coming for a while. In Japan, we've seen these men dare, particularly the parts that go over your shoulders, we've seen them get shorter and shorter and shorter. Now, I brought my men here. I'll just knock something off there, but I brought one of my men here. This is our Victory men. I brought this one on purpose because this is our sort of lightest, sort of most tournament-style men. This, together with the Kendo Star Isamu Boga, which is another very sort of Jisengata type Boga. They follow a very, very similar design. The Isamu is essentially an upgrade on materials and sort of stitching. As you can see, I haven't left the men dare too short. These are still long enough. I'm not going to put it on, but they're still long enough to cover my shoulders. I really don't like the idea of not having my shoulders covered. I don't think it looks good. Obviously, I don't want them so long they're getting in the way, but they need to be short enough so they're comfortable and I can move, but they still need to provide that protection. And I think that not only looks better, but it's really important because the bogu, the armour, is there to protect you. Okay? And then the second point that they make about it is it also has to be strong enough, the men button has to be strong enough or protective enough to protect you from strikes. Okay? Now, one of the things that I've always been really keen on and that we've been really keen on with the Kendo Star brand, with the Victory brand, and all the Boga that we produce, both at Kendo Boga Japan and at Kendo Star, is making sure that it's also protective. I'm sure you've heard me drone on about it loads before, but even with this lightweight, Shiai style, tournament style men, yes, we've got it quite thin here on the men dare, but here up in the part where you're going to get hit, we've left thickness in here, so it's still got plenty of protection. There's no way that you're going to lose sort of protection from being hit, okay? You're not putting yourself at risk of injury, which what you have seen recently in Japan, like I say, particularly with the younger players or manufacturers that particularly cater to younger players, which are the majority of the market over in Japan, they're getting shorter and shorter with these men dare, and it's literally just a layer of felt wrapped in cotton and stitched over for the entire men button, and it just is not protective, okay? It's quite dangerous, to be honest, but these kids are just using it, you know, just for the tournaments, and in their everyday cake, or they're using something else. Which is, again, it's another reason why Kendo Star as a brand exists in the first place, because I really think it's important that, you know, we have Kendo equipment available that's not just suited to Japanese young competitors who make up the majority of the Japanese market. Okay, so that's point number 2. Point number 3 talks about the kote. Specifically, it's about the length of the kote, okay? So again, very similarly with the men, what we have seen, particularly in Japan with youngsters, is the kote button, okay? This part, the part where you get hit, getting shorter and shorter and shorter, okay? And some of them are so short, you know, they want to minimize the target, so it's unlikely they're going to get hit, but the federation's cracking down on that now. So what they're saying now is they want the overall length of the kote. It has to be, and here's where it's a bit difficult, because to be honest, the Japanese here, it's a little bit ambiguous. I've checked this with a few different people, and it can be interpreted in different ways. But we think the most probable interpretation, and certainly the most likely one, is that the kote should extend to half the distance between your fist and your elbow. So, if I can explain that, essentially, I hope I can get all that on screen, but the length from my fist to my elbow, the halfway point, my kote have to be longer than that, okay? They have to be longer than that. So these are the Victory kote. These are the sort of most tournament-style kote that we have. And again, much like with the men, even though they're lightweight, that's thanks to the materials we use. We don't take padding out of here. You'll find that these are still thick and protective, okay? Just like any other kote. We do not compromise on protection for the sake of winning matches. So you'll see here, and it's from the longest part, that from the tip of my fist to here, it's extending past further than halfway, okay? Yeah? this distance is longer, okay? So that's what that rule's talking about, okay? Has to be, can't be up here like this, can't be only short like this, okay? So again, pretty fair enough. I think it is a little bit ambiguous because obviously everybody is different shapes and sizes. I think I would prefer it if this was measured, they said this had to be a certain number of centimeters. I think that would be better because at the end of the day, it's based on the Datotsu Bui, the actual target zone, which certainly in my opinion shouldn't be bigger or smaller based on the size of your opponent. Okay, because somebody's got longer arms, they shouldn't have a bigger target area. The target area should be the same for everybody, for the sake of fairness. I think so. But at the minute, this is how they're talking about governing that. Also, they're also making sure it has to be strong enough, both the protective enough, both the fist portion and the futon has to be protected enough to protect properly, okay? So again, we've seen these really short, really thin kote in Japan with loads of the padding just pulled out of here in order to make it flexible. As I said, these are our most sort of Jissengata type, tournament type kote. Anything other than this that you get from us, it's always going to be even more protective, okay? But even with this one, we don't take any padding out. It's our own blend of wool that we've got in here that makes it so comfortable. It still protects you properly. And again, you've still got that nice thick futon there that's going to be protecting you. So lastly, the point about the kote, number 4, and this again, it's quite a difficult one. But this talks about the kote futon, the eguri, okay? And the depth of the eguri. Now the eguri is this part. You see how it kind of cuts in a curve there? That's so that when you wear it, it doesn't interfere with your arms, yeah? Again, we've seen some of these being very aggressive. So they've kept this a little bit longer, but instead they've made this really, really extreme like this. Now the depth of this, from here to here, according to these rules, is allowed to be a maximum of 2.5 centimeters, okay? Again, these conform to that. We make sure all of ours conform to that, but anything deeper than 2.5 centimeters isn't going to be allowed according to these rules, okay? So that's essentially the changes. They're not massive changes, but they will affect, I think they'll affect some people in Japan, certainly, but potentially worldwide, especially if you've been buying Borgu that's the same as what these youngsters are using in Japan. Like I said, we've seen this coming for a while, to be honest. It doesn't really affect us because we've always been very clear that the Kendo Borgu has to be protective as well as useful and comfortable. Okay, so you can be assured that anything you get from us, from Kendo Star, Kendo Borgu Japan, you're going to be okay with that. The last point that I would pick up on is that what it says here is that they're intending to roll this out in the following tournaments. They'll be applying it in the All Japan Todofuken Ladies Tournament, the Tozai Taiko Tournament, in the All Japan Ladies Championships, and the All Japan Kendo Championships. So for first, it will be for those 4 tournaments. Okay, so that's the only places that these rules are going to be applied. Now, it doesn't mean that these are definitely going to be applied worldwide. We don't know what will happen. And for the time being, they're just preliminary. They're just putting them out there as a test, and they're wanting feedback. So they may come back after they've had these tournaments and say, well, we're right on this, but we need to change this ruling or that ruling. Okay, so we probably will see some small changes to these going forward. Having said that, You might have heard of other rule changes that we've talked about in the past. Things like changes to rules of Tsubazerii. You're not allowed to spend too much time in Tsubazerii before you get a hand soku. It's limiting it to 10 seconds. Or the rules about blocking too much with the Sanpo Mamori type block, being awarded hand soku if you use that as a stance. Things like the SSP sticker on the shinai. Now, this is a slightly different, it's not slightly, it's a very different situation to those rule changes, and I'll explain why. The Tsubazerii and the blocking rule, that was imposed by the Japanese kind of sports association for high school students and junior high school students respectively. It was not imposed by the All Japan Kendo Federation, and it is still currently is not an official rule in All Japan Kendo Federation governed tournaments. Same with the SSP sticker. That was a single ruling by a single tournament in Japan that was organized by I think it was the All Japan Dojo Federation, something like that. They have a big tournament, and it was going to be ruled in that tournament that the shinai had to have the SSP sticker. The SSP sticker, by the way, it's my opinion. It's obviously it's on some shinai, it's not on others. It's given out by the All Japan Kendo Equipment Cooperative. It's not like every shinai is checked for it and then it's stuck on. It doesn't work like that. You pay your money. If you're a shinai producer, you pay a fee to the cooperative, and they send you out a sheet of stickers to stick on the shinai as you will. So it's not really an accurate measure of safety. Not saying that the SSP shinai are safe or not safe. I don't think it makes a massive difference if the supplier themselves are trustworthy. These rules, however, these are directly coming from the All Japan Kendo Federation, and they're putting them in place in tournaments like the All Japan Kendo Championships. So this is a big thing, because I think it's quite likely that if they feel that these rules work well in these tournaments, or if they do need to make small changes, I think we will see them roll out to other tournaments around the world. So that was a quick breakdown of the memo that the All Japan Kendo Federation put out. Get over to kenshi247.net. Check out the translation that they put on there. It's great. It takes you through everything step by step. So get over to that. And also, obviously, check out the other articles on there as well, because they are fantastic. There's some absolute amazing articles on there. So get over to there and check that out. As I said as well at the start of the video, don't forget you can support the channel, shop at kendoborgjapan.com. It's awesome stuff. It all complies to these new rules anyway. You're getting amazing service, amazing quality, all ships out of Japan, and it's free worldwide shipping on that one. If you go to kendostar.co.uk, if you're based in the UK or in Europe, that's ships straight out of the UK. It's the same gear as you're getting from kendoborgjapan.com, but instead we're bringing it into the UK first. So we're getting it through that customs clearance, and then we're shipping it out to you. So we can ship some of that stuff even faster because it's in stock here in the UK. And if you're in the European Union, or if you're in the UK, the customs charges are already sorted, so you don't need to worry about them either. Okay. So with all that being said, I hope you found that interesting. What do you think about it? Let me know. What do you think about these rule changes? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? Do you think they're too strict, or do you think they should be stricter? Let me know. Leave me a comment, and like and share the video with your friends too. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and if you want to get early access to episodes of The Kendo Show, you need to just sign up to our Facebook group that's called The Kendo Show Early Access. There's a link down there somewhere. Click on that and you'll get all of the episodes of The Kendo Show, particularly the instructional, informative videos. They'll come out a few days early in that group before they're released anywhere else. Okay, it's totally free. There's no charge. You don't have to do anything to get in that group. You just have to click on it, and you'll get early access. Okay, so that's about everything for today. Again, sorry that it's been quite sort of informal. I didn't write a script or anything, so I sort of stumbled through it. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.